Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to get our hands dirty and build a complete, fully functional React expense tracker right from scratch.
So let's dive right in. Have you ever wanted to build a genuinely useful app, but you just didn't want the headache of setting up a database or a server? Well, that's exactly what we're doing. We're building a powerful tool for tracking your spending, and here's the kicker. It runs entirely in your browser. All your data stays right there with you.
So you're probably wondering, how is that even possible? No database? Well, the whole thing works because of a little bit of magic, specifically a custom React hook that talks directly to your browser's local storage. Now, if you haven't played with it before, local storage is a feature that's already built into every modern web browser. The best way to think about it is like a tiny, persistent filing cabinet for a specific website. You can stick some data in there and poof, it'll still be there the next time you open the page. No expiration date.
And this is our secret weapon for the project, a custom hook we'll call useLocalStorage. This little function is a real game changer. It lets us treat a piece of local storage just like any other piece of React state. All you have to do is give it a key, which is like a label for your data, and an initial value, just in case there's nothing there to start with.
Okay, so how does this hook actually work its magic? Well, under the hood, it's pretty clever. First, it peeks into local storage to see if there's any data with the key you gave it. If it comes up empty, no problem. It just uses the default value you provided. Then, it hands that data over to React's own useState hook. But here's the really cool part. It uses a useEffect hook that's always watching. The second that state changes, useEffect swoops in and writes the new version right back to local storage. It creates this perfect automatic sync between our app and the browser.
All right, so we've got our storage solution all sorted out. Now let's break down the app itself. It's really just built from 4 main components, and each one has a very specific job to do.
First up, we have the front door for all of our data, the expense form. I mean, every tracker needs a way to add new stuff, right? This component is where all of that happens.
Its role is pretty straightforward, but absolutely crucial. It captures everything you type in, the title, the amount, the date, all that good stuff. It does a quick check to make sure you didn't leave anything important blank, and then it bundles all that info into a nice little object and sends it up the chain to the main app component, which takes care of the actual saving.
Okay, so once we've got some data in there, we actually need to see it. And that's where the expense list component steps in.
Think of this component as our main dashboard. It takes all those expenses and just lays them out in a nice, clean list. But it's doing more than just showing items. It's also keeping a running tally of how many expenses you have, and more importantly, it calculates the total amount of money you've spent. And of course, each item has a little delete button, because you got to be able to clean things up.
Now, once your list starts to get long, scrolling through everything is a real pain. You're going to want a way to slice and dice that data, and that is the job of our third component, the expense filter. This is where the app starts to feel really powerful. You can instantly filter your view by year, by category, or you can even just type into a search bar to find something by its title. And what's really slick here is how it's designed. The filter options, like the years and categories, they aren't hard-coded. They're generated on the fly from the expenses you've already logged. So the filters are always perfectly tailored to your data. And last but not least, to get that high-level, bird's-eye view of your spending, we have our fourth component, the expense chart.
This little chart does one thing and does it well. It crunches the numbers for whatever year you've selected and shows you your spending month by month in a simple bar chart. But you know what's maybe the most impressive thing about it? It has 0 external dependencies. No heavy charting libraries. This is all just pure JSX and SVG, proving you can build some pretty cool visualizations without bloating your project.
Okay, so we have all these separate components, right? The form, the list, the filter, the chart, but how do they all talk to each other? Well, that all happens in one central place, app.jsx. You can really think of it as the brain of the whole operation. Yeah, this is where everything comes together. App.jsx is our single source of truth. It's the component that actually calls our useLocalStorage hook to manage that master list of expenses. It also keeps track of the current filter settings, and it holds all the logic for adding a new expense or deleting an old one. It figures out the final filtered list of expenses to show, and then it passes all that data and all those functions down to the other components as props. It's the central command center. So let's just walk through an example. What happens when you actually use a filter? First, you click on a year, let's say 2025. That immediately triggers a state update back in app.jsx. Now, because we're using React, it knows things have changed.
We're also using a use memo hook here, which is super efficient. It only recalculates the filtered list of expenses when the main list or the filters actually change. Then, boom, the UI re-renders, and both the expense list and the expense chart get the new filtered data. It's just a really smooth, reactive flow.
All right, we've gone through the whole architecture. Now for the really fun part, getting this thing running on your own machine and talking about how you can make it your own.
And honestly, getting started could not be easier. It's just 3 commands. You use vit to create a new React project, you run npm install to get the dependencies, and then npm run dev to start the server. That's it. In like a minute, you'll have the entire app running right there on your computer.
And this is where you can really start to have fun, because this project is an awesome jumping-off point. You could add an edit button to fix mistakes. Or what about a whole separate UI for managing your spending categories? If you're feeling ambitious, you could rip out our simple chart and plug in something more powerful like Chart.js. You could add CSV import and export. Or you could go all the way and build a real backend so you can sync your data across all your devices. The sky's the limit here.
So there you have it. That's a full tour of a React expense tracker that runs without any database at all. It's simple, it's surprisingly powerful, and it's a fantastic foundation to build on. So the only real question left is, what feature are you going to build first?